a 22mm socket, let's go ahead and remove the lug nuts and pull the wheel off. Sometimes the wheel might be stuck to the hub itself, so we're going to go ahead and using a rubber mallet, go ahead and just bonk the wheel and get that loose. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove this slider pin bolt and this slider pin bolt. Now our caliper is stuck into the caliper bracket with some rust, so we're just going to give this a few taps and gently work that back and forth. You can see we got some mobility out of it already. All right, now that we have this released, I want to go ahead and hang this. Get that up out of the way. We just don't want any premature stress or pressure on the brake line hose. Now we're going to remove the brake pads. Using a 21mm socket and breaker bar, we're going to go ahead and loosen these two bolts. Before you remove this bolt, hold on to the bracket because it will fall once that bolt comes out. We're going to go ahead and remove the brake rotor. Set that aside. Now we have our caliper bracket here. I want to go ahead and remove the slides. We have one here. We're going to leave that for now. We want to go ahead and clean this up. Use your wire brush. Do an inspection. Make sure there's no chunky things of rust on there. Once everything is clean, I'm going to go ahead and apply a thin coating of grease on here. You want to make sure that when you had removed this here, it has the extra long piece of the slider to the outside here. So you want to go ahead and match up your clip. Go ahead and install. And repeat for the other side. Now what we want to do is take your mounting bolts and the slider pin bolts, go ahead and clean these off. It's just going to make for an easy installation when you go to thread these back in. Do this for all four of the bolts. All right, now we're going to go ahead and install our caliper bracket. We did apply some blue Loctite on the threads. I'll go ahead and get that bolt started. Then we'll repeat for the bottom bolt. Let's go ahead and snug down these bolts for the caliper bracket. Grab our caliper. We're going to line this up. And we're going to put a couple bolts in here. Now I did pop the caliper back on with no pads. What we're going to do is we're now going to pop off this rubber boot. Your vehicle may have it or may not. This is for your bleeder screw, and we're going to open this up. This is going to help us compress the piston in on the caliper. We're going to use an 11mm socket on this bleeder screw to just loosen this. And once you see brake fluid coming out, we're going to go ahead and snug that back down. I'm going to remove the caliper again and bring this up top. We're going to disconnect the ABS wire from this here. It's going to give us a little mobility here. We want to work on loosening our sliders here. They're both stuck in there pretty good. So let's go ahead and free these up. Now what we want to do is gently work this rubber boot off. You don't want to tear the boot. The boots look fine. So we sprayed a little bit of rust penetrant around the boot, around the perimeter here, and we're able to loosen up this sleeve here, the slider. We're going to do the same to the back slider, but now we want to go ahead and get the slider out completely. So we're going to go ahead and peel this rubber boot off the front right there. We want to pop it off the back as well. You want to be very careful not to tear the boot, but you want to get it inside and work it off of the slider. Now we can't get our finger inside here to push that slider out, so we're just going to use the original slider pin bolt. Just put it inside, and we're just going to use that to push on that slider pin and get it out the other side. Repeat for the other side. Once we have the sliders out, we want to go ahead and remove the rubber boots. This particular one is a one-piece boot that goes all the way through. Once you pull this out, repeat for the other side. Now where the rubber boots had gone through the caliper itself is a one-piece unit, and then the bolt has to go through this. What we're going to do is use a bore cleaning brush to clean out any rust or buildup inside both of these ports here. Because if there's rust buildup on that, it's going to cause this to push in, and it's going to cause resistance on the bolts themselves and cause these to bind up. Now that we have everything out, I'm going to go ahead and use a bore brush, and we're just going to run this through and clean this up. With both of these bores clean, we're going to go ahead, spray a little lubricant on our boots, and we're going to slide those back in. Pull them through the other side. Once you get the boot starting to pull through the other side, just grab it and pull it through. And get to wipe it down. And repeat for the other side. Now what we're going to do is take the old pad, drop the pad in there, and use a C-clamp. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put a little bit of pressure on that. Is going to go ahead and loosen that brake bleeder just so that the fluid starts dribbling out. And we're going to go ahead and compress this. And what we want to do is put this piston all the way back in. Once we have that bottomed out, we're going to go ahead and tighten up that bleeder screw. Now I have a rag here. You can have a catch can underneath if you want. All right, that bleeder is now tight. You're going to wipe that, release the C-clamp, and take off the pad. Now I want to go ahead and rehang this. I want to go ahead and install our brake pads. Next we want to go ahead and clean our slide pins or sliders. We're going to run our bore brush inside this here to clean that out. Take a little amount of grease, slide that inside, repeat for the other side. Take your slider, pop that inside the rubber boot, push it through to the other side. And repeat for the other side. Once you're assembled, check to make sure that the sliders work fine, and ours are working good. So now I'm going to go ahead and push these in. Go ahead and line this up. And we'll go ahead and get our bolt started. Let's go ahead and snug down those caliper bolts. Now we'll go ahead and put our bleeder screw rubber cap on. Next, you want to go ahead and pump up the brakes, open the hood, and check your brake fluid level and add it as necessary. Now we're going to go ahead and torque the caliper bolts to 11 foot-pounds. And we're going to torque the caliper bracket bolts to 100 foot-pounds. With those torqued, we're now going to go ahead and reattach our clips right here for our ABS harness. And go ahead and install the wheel. I'm going to get all these started by hand. Now we're going to go ahead and torque the wheels down to 135 foot-pounds.